Welcome to Feed Your Lion. I'm Dr. L.I.O.N, and I'm here to aid you in the mastery of total health, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial. So prepare to have your wellness tank filled up with this podcast. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Feed Your Lion podcast. Today, I have two special guests. Mr. McCabe, he is the Egg White International guy. He's going to tell us all about the company and why egg whites are awesome and how you can add this product into everything. And then Superstar Fitness, Monica Brant, who's coming to see us soon in about a month to the tri-state area. So she's jumping on here because she's been a long time user of the egg whites and Mac's company here. So she's going to talk to us a little more about how she's incorporated this in. And I'm so glad to have you guys both here. Thank you for taking time on a Friday to do the podcast with me.
Thanks, Jodelle.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it and always have fun talking about egg whites and protein.
So Mac told me, Monica, that you guys met a long time ago, right?
Yeah. I think we always have been 15 years. I don't know. I know we met probably at the OLYMPIA one year in the early 2000s. And Matt came, he would come up to me and say, you need to use Egg White International. So finally we worked it out, and I've been a fan and a user ever since. And I think that was around maybe 2005, Mac, 2004, 2005. So it's been a lot of years.
Wow.
Yeah, I can look in the computer here because I know it. I know I met you before you started using it, but
it's been a lot of years, Jodelle, and they just have been such a blessing for everything that I do, because everything I do revolves around maintaining my physique, maintaining my health, muscle. We know that, especially as we're getting older, and I'm 54 now. So for me, keeping my muscle is so important, and not just for how I look, but how I feel, how I can exercise, because I'm someone that likes to have intense exercise.
Yeah.
So we gotta be able to keep our muscle, and the only way to keep muscle is really with our nutrition. And so Egg White International has been a huge blessing for me, as well as family members and clients and friends and you name it, associates. It's been a blessing.
Well, it's crazy that you're 54 because you look amazing. So first of all, let me just say that it's awesome. I mean, do not look 54 at all, and I love that. And muscle, I talk about this all the time in general, but like longevity and muscle are tied hand in hand. I mean, it's when you start to atrophy that that's when people start dying. I mean, that's just the truth. There's study after study that shows that. So I love that you talk about that with aging, because that's such a paramount importance, and people underestimate, I think, the importance of strength training and doing those things for your health.
Absolutely.
So I love
we got to lift heavy things, and we've got to eat enough protein to maintain, and maintaining not just our muscle, because I think as we get older too, muscle may be the last thing that really gets the protein, because the brain and all the other organs, everything needs protein. So it's really important to increase. And I don't think we digest, as we get older, we don't digest protein as well, just because the stomach acids and stuff is a little bit different. So I think that we actually need to get more in than people think they need, because of all the situation that our older body is dealing with. And of course, our body doesn't want to hang on to muscle. Like it's, so we're fighting this uphill battle, but it's okay. We've got awesome product that, Max brought to us and continues to, so.
Yeah. Now, Mac, was it 1999 your company was founded? Is that about
correct?
Right?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
I was trying to look that up. Okay, so 1999. So you've been around for a while. Tell me about like the little bit with the start of this and how that came to be.
Well, originally we were dealing with a lot of bodybuilders that were cracking a dozen eggs and separating them every morning, and cracking a dozen eggs and separating them every night. So the original objective was to find a way to save these bodybuilders all the time it takes to crack 14 dozen eggs a week, And if we did it for them, what kind of container would we need? And it turned out to be a 1 gallon container. And then as we got to that point, we started doing trade shows and then realizing, well, it's really a pain eating all these eggs every day. What if we could make it a drink? So we literally spent about 2 years figuring out how to remove the salmonella, listeria, and E. coli and still make it palatable so it wouldn't taste like you're drinking a slimy egg. Once we got rid of the slimy texture and figured out how to filter it properly, it ended up being as smooth like water or milk. So the bodybuilders really loved it because now they could eat 14 dozen eggs a week and never actually eat a single egg. But the funny thing was the girlfriends of the bodybuilders started figuring out that it helps them burn fat. It helps their fingernails, their hair, and their skin. So in about 5 years' time, we went from about 90% bodybuilding to about 80% weight loss when all the other people figured out they could use it as a weight loss drink. So it kind of morphed into something totally different. And now we're the highest rated protein by the U.S. government for children's nutrition because you can put it in cereal and milk and you just can't taste it. But it all started out just dealing with an easy way to save bodybuilders time, cracking 14 dozen eggs a week.
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that because, I was a little skeptical that I wouldn't be able to taste anything gross when you told me that, when I went to try it, but I put it in my protein coffee and I put it in a protein shake and I couldn't tell a difference adding it in. So you weren't lying about that. I literally couldn't tell a difference. So I was pretty impressed with that. And I was like, wow, I just got extra out of that, so it was kind of neat. But Monica, I'd love to hear how you're using it because Max said you've come up with some creative ways to use your egg whites.
Well, I mean, honestly, I I use it every day, twice a day minimum. And primarily in like you, I have a coffee drink that I like to make, and sometimes I make it in my black tea as
Yeah.
well. And I have a couple of things I like to put in there. So I do have my own little, concoction that I get excited about having. And the thing with the egg whites is it makes it a little bit frothy. Like when you use a little frother, it literally makes the drink a little frothy. So I like that because it gives it a little more texture. And then I use it in bone broth. So I like bone broth.
Okay.
So I'll just lightly stir it in my bone broth when my bone broth is just getting warm because I don't want it hot and I don't want to cook the egg white in it because if you get it too hot, it will cook it. So I don't want to do that because that's, the whole point of having it is having it as is the liquid, but you can just barely stir it in when your bone broth is warm or soup. I mean, how many people enjoy some good soup? And there's some really good ones on the market right now. Kettle and Fire is one of my favorites. There's so many different flavors of bone broth and stuff. So throw it in there. That's an extra. And especially if somebody's, not feeling real well and they don't really want to eat, their appetite is kind of minimal, people when they're not feeling good, they don't want to eat, but we still have to get that nutrition. And so bone broth and the egg white is just such a beautiful healing product to use, or combination to use. So those are some things. And at night, I usually like to do I'm the same with you. I have a good protein powder that's high quality and it's expensive. So I can use minimal of that and I increase my egg whites in it so I get more protein. So I'm getting the flavor of that high quality protein powder that I feel confident in.
Yeah.
And I can use less because I'm getting more protein with the egg whites, right? So
Yes.
it works out really well. And I have made like whole eggs, like a fried whole egg, and then I can add I know we want to keep it liquid as much as possible, but one of the ways to kind of boost up if you want to get eggs in or scrambled eggs and say, I don't want to eat, 5 whole eggs.
Yeah.
But I will buy really high quality eggs. And then if I want scrambled or fried eggs, then I will just literally, as they're cooking, I will put the liquid egg white in there and just let it cook along with it. So then I'm going to get more protein there, high quality protein without having to, waste egg yolks.
That's funny. That was going to be my next try because I eat 2 eggs every morning with a protein oat thing. And So I was gonna add just extra, like, so that I'm getting more egg
Yeah.
white with it
Just
and so that, yeah.
as it's finishing up, just kind of add it in, or if you do scrambled eggs, you can just mix it in. And I don't overcook my scrambled eggs. I don't like them too dry and
Mm-hmm.
overcooked. So, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, there's so many different ways. I know that, I don't have children, but I've had a young lady that I helped raise a long time ago, and she was in middle school. So I used to put the egg whites in her cereal, and she was
Yeah.
always like, "Do you have egg whites?" I'm like, "Yeah," but she couldn't tell. She just knew, she saw me doing it. And
She
so
was
she knew.
watching you.
Yeah, and I had a mom tell me she made her kids mac and cheese with the egg whites.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are definitely ways to be creative and utilizing them. And then it's just period, like just get them in, like
Yeah. Yeah.
do it. And some people like to take, some people don't care about having a protein shake to drink, but they like to take the protein powder and just mix like it with a little water to make it like a pudding. So if
Mm-hmm.
you do the egg whites, you get like a little pudding in there. And then that is also kind of like, you're getting your kind of like dessert kind
Yeah.
of feel, with a
Yeah.
pudding source.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just finding the ways. I know Max talked to so many people about using them. He's probably got a lot more opportunities of sharing that, but I have just used them like that. And then one of the things, I travel a lot. My husband and I travel.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to be there an extended amount of time, we order a half gallon of the egg whites and have it shipped to the hotel.
That's awesome.
So we have it there while we're there, and we can use it while we're there. Cause it's like kind of hard to travel with that, but it can be shipped.
Well, I tell you, I was just in Vegas for a conference. I told you that I just got back a few days ago, and I went with all my protein stuff, and I was trying to be good on, my little conference, and they wanted to charge me $50 a night to use the little hotel fridge that was already in there. And I'm like, come on, guys, you're getting plenty of money off this casino. But man, that made me mad just to put my little protein shaker in the fridge. They wanted $50 a night.
The way you can get around that in the future is if you can get to like a drugstore or something and buy one of those really cheap little, even this little cheap styrofoam
Yeah, cooler.
cooler, and then just keep filling with ice. Like
Yeah,
it's more work. And
yeah,
yes, the hotels are, trying
yeah,
to charge on everything, but
yeah.
I have had hotels take the rest of my egg white in the container and freeze it for me overnight, because you can refreeze it, and
Okay.
then I can travel with it the next day in checked luggage, frozen. So
Yeah.
there's some things you can do like that, and not every hotel is excited about doing that, but I've kind of begged. And interestingly, one time I had a girl that was so cute, and she got so excited about it, and she was working the front desk, and she's like, "What is this?" And so I said, "Well, why don't you just take the rest of it and use it?" And so she started buying egg whites after that. She was all excited about buying
That's
it because she was trying to
awesome.
get healthier, and she's like, "Oh, this is great." So I ended up giving it to her, but yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah, I love that. So, Mac, you were telling me too on the phone the other day that a lot of these moms will send their kids to school, like, if they're drinking chocolate milk, which may not be the most nutritious thing, but they can stick those egg whites right in there too, and then you get at least some more protein out of it if you're gonna have
Yeah,
those
it's,
kind of things.
yeah, that's pretty funny. I had a couple moms tell me that they would use like 4 ounces of egg whites with 4 ounces of milk and then just put it in their chocolate milk and then send them to school because the kid literally just ate 5 eggs for breakfast and got 13 grams of protein in a glass of chocolate milk. And when are they ever going to sit down and eat 5 eggs for breakfast anytime to start
Yeah,
with?
right,
You know?
right. Is there any like things that you've kind of been impressed with as far as how people are consuming the product that you didn't really think about when you were setting out or designing this?
Oh, let me tell you something. You would be amazed at the creativity people have. I mean, people who like to eat yogurt will take a blueberry yogurt, dump it into a cup of egg whites, and just stir it up and make it kind of like a yogurt smoothie. So they'll turn their
Hmm.
yogurt into a drink. Um, at nighttime, they'll get creative with non-alcoholic things like margarita mix or something to give it some kind of flavor.
Hmm.
Iced coffee is my hands down favorite. My wife and I every morning I use 12 ounces. She does 8 ounces, and just dump it into cold brew coffee with some French vanilla.
Yeah.
Some people will take a cup of egg whites at night and put 2 drops of vanilla extract in it to make it a vanilla shake by just using vanilla extract. I mean, you can drink it straight. It tastes like a very faint salt water, but most people that don't drink it straight, it's not because it tastes bad. It's because it's a mental thing of
Yeah.
drinking egg whites. It's just that they don't get it. But when
Yeah.
they drink it with a flavor in it, they don't even know they're drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
And Trader Joe's and Mother's Market and some of these stores sell 25 different flavors of sugar-free flavored syrups. So you can make it everything from salted caramel to mint chocolate chip and make a drink out of it with any flavor you want to do. So it's basically just using your own imagination.
Yeah, that's really, I love that. Monica, I want to honor your time, so I know it's 1:50. Is there anything closing you want to say before you hop off here, and then I get into it with Mac a little bit?
Well, I'm looking forward to being there with you guys on May 17th, and I'm trusting that we'll have some egg whites there. We can do
Yes.
some shakes for everyone and have them try it out. But it's always fun to open people's eyes up to this really unique item that we can add in and use every day. And I just, can't say enough things about how wonderful it is, and everyone needs to have egg whites in their fridge and
love
freezer and
I
freezer.
love it.
And the last thing I'll say is it's been really awesome to work with Mac, because I can send anybody to Mac and say, the owner would like to speak with you. And it's an honor, the owner wants to speak to somebody, anybody. You don't have to be a bodybuilder, or you could be like, just random person that I run into. I'm like, hey, the owner would like to talk to you and make sure you know how to use these. It's free advice on how to build and keep muscle. Like, I don't know, it's been a blessing for me in so many different areas, and the people that I can connect with Mac, they always come back and it's like, I had such a great conversation with him.
Well,
So-
that's the thing. Like, I mean, we jumped right on the phone, and I mean, it was, this is only my second time, and he's a genuine guy, just loves this product, and I love that, like, so kind. So I do appreciate you taking your time, Mac, to talk about this and being on here, and you don't even know me hardly, so I love that.
Well, that'll be short. That'll be short-lived. We'll be longtime
I
friends
know,
in no
yeah,
time.
I can
Mac-
see that.
Mac has a heart of gold for people, and he has proven that time and time again all the years. So Mac, did we say, was it 2005 when we started?
Roughly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mac has, sponsored and been a part of all of my events. I hosted women's events for almost 20 years,
Mhm.
and photo shoots, you name it. Egg White International has been a part of it. He's always wanting to help people and lift people up. He has an amazing product, but it's his heart for people that
Yeah.
creates that drive to get people this information. And even now with all the crazy bird stuff going on, like, he's still out here just, hunting the best prices, want to make sure people have access to this, because it's overall, it's health, right? We're just trying to
Yes.
keep people healthy. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Mac. It's good to see you. And
Love you.
yeah, love you too much. Jodelle, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Take care.
All right. And it's just us, Mac.
Very good.
So I want to work a little backwards now, and I want to kind of ask you about your background and how you even got interested in this company and doing this. What kind of sparked the passion for this, I guess.
Well, it was complete fluke. I owned a chain of furniture and appliance stores back in 1999. And I was at my doctor's office with my wife. She had a doctor's appointment. And at the end of the day, he took me in the office and showed us some pictures of him on the wall with these two gigantic women bodybuilders. And I asked him, I said, well, what's this all about? He says, well, I'm getting in the egg white business. I said, what are you talking about? I said, you're a doctor. He said, well, I'm going to retire on egg whites. And I go, what? So anyhow, long story short, they were looking for investors. So I came in as a silent investor just to help them get this company going. I knew nothing about it. And I decided to go to some of their meetings and learn more about the company. And I ended up investing more money in the company. Anyhow, long story short, by 2001, I ended up taking over the company, becoming the president of the company. and had some other investors involved with me in the company, but I got into it to become a silent partner and ended up now the president of the company. And then over the next 11 years, I sold off all my other furniture and appliance stores because I was having more fun watching people get healthy and
Yeah.
learning. I mean, I started learning more about eggs than anybody would ever know. And I can hold a head-to-head conversation with any doctor, any nutritionist about anything right now from everything I've learned from the doctors and nutritionists. And yet I have no background in the medical field. I have no background in nutrition.
Yeah.
It's just been from a learning experience.
Well, I do want to pick your brain on that a little bit because, now eggs have always been popular in the bodybuilding world. I mean, I think that's pretty across the board, but sometimes people like when you have conversation and I guess I want to start with people that don't understand the difference between, okay, an egg white and then the whole egg. So if we can start simply with that, like, in your product, you're not having any of the cholesterol and the fat and things you see a lot with the yolk part of the egg. And that sometimes is a little more controversial to having a lot of those a day versus egg whites. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, a whole egg is certainly good for you in moderation, but the egg, just so you know the breakdown, we only deal with the egg white because it's fat-free, cholesterol-free. An 8-ounce cup will have 26 grams of protein, 0 fat, 0 cholesterol, 2 carbs, 120 calories. It's equivalent to like 10 egg whites. The egg yolk is used primarily for mayonnaise, salad dressing, and stuff like that. They actually grind up the shell into a fine powder for a calcium food supplement for pet food, so nothing goes to waste. So when you're eating eggs, if you're going to want to eat a whole egg, it's good to do about a 5-to-1 ratio. So it'd be 1 whole egg with the yolk to 4 egg whites so that you still got the color and the taste of the yolk, but you can't drink the yolk. The egg white by itself, when it's filtered the way we do it, and we're the only egg white in the world solely designed to drink. So we don't care if you ever cook it. Because when you cook an egg, you denature the protein. You're going to lose about 12% of the nutrients. Your body works harder to break it down. Then you got to digest solid food and you're going to have solid waste. Where when you drink the egg white, it tastes basically like a faint salt water if you were to drink it straight. Flavor it with whatever you want. But it's 100% bioavailable for 5 hours of muscle support. You're not losing that 12%. So the whole egg is good for you in moderation, but the egg white is the part you can drink, and the whole idea is to replace protein powders. We're trying to get people away from chemically engineered foods. So what people don't know is that the protein powder industry for the last several years has been under a federal investigation for having no regulations in the United States. So 90% of the protein powders that come into the U.S. are made outside the U.S., and they have 5 heavy metals in them. Everything from tungsten, lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium. So long-term use of these powders can cause pancreatitis, liver, kidney problems, and other digestive issues. So if you're using a powder, like Monica was saying, she has a very expensive, high-quality powder, and she just uses a very small amount to flavor the egg white so that she can stretch that powder out to get 2 or 3 times the value out of it as a flavoring agent for the egg whites.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was experimenting with too. And like I said, it tasted great. I really couldn't tell a difference, to be honest with you, when I did it that way. But as far as, it's interesting that you're bringing up like the heavy metals and things. I'm doing more like in the nutrition sector right now and functional nutrition. My background is an ER doctor, but I'm going much more into the functional and wellness side of things. So we were just, talking about in my last course how a lot of the supplements, and it goes, beyond protein powders and everything else, a lot of the supplements people are getting have a ton of heavy metals, and they're, even the dosing is not even, what it says it is, and having consistency, and you really for an average consumer, they don't really know what to trust in products a lot of the times or what they're getting. And like you say, people are trying to be healthy, and all get their protein in because they're hearing more and more like we're not doing enough protein, which we're not. We're supposed to be around 1 gram per kilogram of or per pound of ideal body weight, and we're not anywhere close. A lot of people, so they're trying to do these things, but then they get these supplements that are poor quality or contaminated. So it's really nice to know that you have this company that has gone through the standardized process. Exactly what you're getting, and it's safe to put in with these products. So I love what you're doing. I do. So
Well, protein powders came about years and years and years ago because bodybuilders were trying to eat 5 or 6 times a day and they just couldn't eat it, and they needed a shortcut to get in all this protein without eating all this food. So they start coming up with these chemically engineered supplements. So they are a shortcut to people too lazy to eat that much food or just can't physically eat that much food. And what I really like about this product, when I was brought up as a kid, and probably most people when they're brought up as a kid, if their parents aren't bodybuilders, only learn 3 words: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's it. But in the bodybuilding world or in the fitness world, they want you to eat 5 times a day. They want you to take your protein, break it up into 5 meals, so you're eating every 3 or 4 hours. Well, an average person doesn't have time. I don't have time to eat 5 times a day. So if I take my egg whites in the morning and 1 a minute before they go to bed, I've increased my protein intake by 40% without actually eating 40% more food.
yeah.
So I only have to eat 3 times a day, not 5 times a day, but I'm getting 5 meals in. And like you were just saying about the general rule of thumb is an average active person requires 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight per day and divide it by 5. Well, a lot of people don't know how to calculate that. So I tell them, look, let's say you got a lady who weighs 150 pounds, wants to lose 25 pounds. You may never actually get down to 125, but she knows 125 would be technically her lean body mass. So I tell her to use that as her number. Let's call it 125.
Yeah.
This means that you need 5 meals at 25 grams of protein per meal. So if you do the 8 ounces of egg whites in the morning and the 8 ounces of egg whites at night, each one of those is 26 grams of protein.
Yep.
Now, all you really have to do is eat 75 grams of protein the rest of the day.
Yep.
And you hit your numbers.
Yeah. And that makes it easy for people to understand, like that's a pretty good serving. I mean, most of your shakes and stuff like that you're doing are around 20 grams of protein typically, I would say, for a serving. You can get the high, like some of the bodybuilder ones are much more, but I'm just talking about like regular, like people, if they're getting an over the counter, protein shake, you see a lot of them around 20 grams of protein. So you're getting even more with that in a small amount that you can add in,
Well, there's a misconception to that. What people don't know is, let's say you had the best protein powder or best RTD, ready to drink protein drink in the world. Let's say it has no heavy metals. It's in the top 10%. What people don't know is that every single one of those is called a chemically engineered food. The maximum absorption rate that your body will ever absorb is 70%. So if you got a protein drink that says 20 grams of protein, you'll barely get 14 actual grams out of that. You're more likely going to get 10 grams because your body can't break it down. It's a chemically engineered supplement. So when you take, let's say you got an RTD that you like to drink every day. If you cut it in half and use half of that RTD and mix it in 8 ounces of egg whites, and then do the other half at night with 8 ounces of egg whites, you'll actually get 40% more protein and make that RTD last twice as long.
Yeah.
So don't be misled when you think you're getting 40 grams of protein out of 2 scoops, because you're not. You're getting maybe 26, maybe 28 at the most. That's because it's not real food. You're only going to get it from real food. And if you think about it, there's no real food in the world you can actually drink other than egg whites, short of grinding up a chicken breast in a blender and trying to chug that sucker down.
No, I love that you said that. And two, there's like, even with people that are, vegetarian or whatever, they have to be careful because even a lot of your egg whites have like all the amino acids, right? That we need, all the essentials.
Yeah, it's a complete protein with the entire essential amino acid profile.
and a lot of people are getting proteins that are incomplete. So they've kind of got to hop around and pay attention to that if they're not getting that complete protein profile. So that's a good point. It's not only absorption, are you getting all the types of, protein that you need in your diet too? So that I love that you brought that up about the absorption. And that's the problem with a lot of foods and things that we have that are altered, and why whole foods and, these things are so important for our diet. But I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I'll tell you something else that we do a lot of clients that are dealing with chemotherapy going through cancer.
Mhm.
Because, and you know this already as it being in the medical field, and I've heard this from a lot of cancer doctors that have said the majority of people that succumb to cancer don't actually succumb to cancer before they succumb to malnutrition, because they stop eating properly and they die skin and bones. I've had doctors call me from New York to overnight express egg whites to a patient because they're just not getting enough protein.
Yeah.
And most people, when they go through chemo, it fries your taste buds. You can't taste it anyhow. But one thing about people going through chemo treatments is in a lot of cases, they can't keep solid food down. So they're going to wither away because they're not getting any proper nutrition. But when they're drinking the egg whites, it's no different than drinking a glass of water. They keep the nutrition in their body so that they don't lose all this weight during a chemo treatment. So an average person might lose 20 pounds of body weight in the first 2 or 3 weeks of chemo.
100%.
But if they're drinking the egg whites, they don't lose any body weight during chemo because they're staying nutritionally sound without having to keep solid food down.
Yeah. I love that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about my grandpa. He's been going through, he had a head and neck cancer, and they had to do like the radical lymph nodes and all of that. And it came back. He's doing now every 3 weeks, infusions and things. But I'm thinking about that because they've been on him about the weight constantly. Like, you have to eat, you have to get your protein in. And I'm just thinking I need to send him some of your egg whites, because that's like, I actually, that wasn't even on my radar until you were just talking about the chemotherapy. I'm like, he's a perfect candidate for that. He can add that in. So.
Does he have a hard time swallowing because of this throat cancer?
He did at first, and he did have like a wound, for a while, but he's, over the last few weeks, he's been kind of stable because he's off the chemotherapy side. Now he's just doing like, why am I blanking out on the type of infusions right now that he's getting? But it's like a modulator type of treatment
Right.
versus like a chemotherapy that he gets once every 3 weeks now. And they were doing radiation, but and he had some hard time with that. But then once he's gotten past that part, and he's 90, so,
Yeah.
they're still doing this stuff, but pretty healthy otherwise. So, but his weight has been an issue with that. And you're right, the wasting part of the chemotherapy and the treatments for these things are a lot of times the worst and makes them more susceptible to infections and everything else. So that's a great thing. I'm glad you said that, because even now I'm like, I'm gonna have to have you send him a gallon.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, some of the stories I hear from people, it just blows my mind. I mean, I had a guy who was one of my neighbors in my shopping center, and his dad was in the hospital, in hospice, basically, from going through chemo treatments. And he was 6 foot tall, weighed 120 pounds. He couldn't really get out of bed and walk, not because he was crippled, but because he just had no muscle mass. And they were looking for anything to try to get some nutrition in him. And so he came over, picked up a bottle of egg whites, took it over to the nurses, and had them give him 4 ounces of egg whites 3 times a day. So it was like 13 grams of protein 3 times a day. So he got about 39 grams of protein in. And ironically, in 6 weeks' time, his dad went from 120 pounds to 126 pounds and never got out of bed, just from getting the proper protein in, because egg whites and your muscle has what's called muscle memory. So you can regain muscle kind of like you put water in a sponge and it swells up. It doesn't build new muscle. It just recognizes muscle that should have been there, and it replenishes that muscle. And then he calls me one day and says, "Hey, I have to tell you, my dad fell out of bed and hurt himself today." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." He says, "No, you're not listening. Dad wanted out of bed."
That's awesome. I love that. So with your company now, like, can you talk a little bit about from when you started and kind of took over? How did that work? Because you were in the furniture. I mean, was it the same kind of thing, sales, marketing, that kind of stuff? How did you kind of grow this, or did you just kind of focus on the bodybuilding industry and it kind of expanded from there? Like what was your kind of strategy when you started into this more heavily and became the president?
Well, I just started doing every single trade show I could get my hands on. I mean,
Gotcha.
I was doing probably 30 trade shows a year, everything from the Arnold Classic, which has over 200,000 people, to the smallest little high school gym that had 75 people.
Gotcha.
And the whole idea was to get it in front of people, let them taste it. I mean, imagine I got a trade show booth with a bunch of egg whites in front of me, and people are walking up going, "Are you kidding me? You want me to chug egg whites?" And I started mixing it with chocolate, banana, strawberry, different flavors to let them try it, to show them that they couldn't actually taste it.
Mm-hmm.
So all the way up until March of 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was doing nothing but trade shows. And when the pandemic hit, I haven't done a trade show since. So I've been putting my money into promoting on Amazon, doing more with Facebook and Instagram. But it was all about getting in front of people and letting them taste it. Because the biggest misconception is it's an egg white. Everybody, and just like you, when I talked about sending you egg whites for you to drink, you're going, I don't know about this, until you actually drink it and you go, wait a minute, I don't actually taste this.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I get guys that have been using the egg whites for a while, and they'll have their wife call in to order the egg whites, and the wife will get on the phone and I'll say, well, have you tried this yet? She says, oh no, this is disgusting. That's his thing. I'm not going to do this. And I started explaining to her about how a lot of women notice their fingernails are growing faster, their hair is thicker and shinier, their skin smoother and tighter, they're losing 2 to 3 pounds of fat per week, and they're not even on a diet. And you can put it in your mocha frappuccino at Starbucks and you can't even taste it. And they'll go, okay, I'll give it a try. Well, the next month, the husband calls me and says, look, bro, I'm never letting my wife call you again. I said, why? She says, he's drinking all my egg whites now.
I love that. That's great. So tell me about like all the recent stuff with the eggs, and has that affected you? I'm sure it has. Like, what's your thoughts on all that? Have you had any problems getting good quality eggs or anything?
No problem getting the eggs. It's just what I'm paying for the eggs. This bird flu has been going on since 2012. Actually, it's been going on a lot longer than that, but the first time it hit us was really hard in 2012. And what happens is you have these migrating geese coming out of Canada. They fly south for the winter, and they fly over this area called the Midwest Territory, which is Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. And that's where 90% of all the egg layers is in that Midwest Territory. Okay. Well, these birds carry the bird flu. And when they land on these farms and they get into the water supply, it'll infect these birds with the bird flu. Well, the USDA steps in, and if they do a test, because birds start falling over dead. I mean, it literally just, you got dead birds laying around in the field. They come in and test the birds, and if they find one bird with the bird flu, the USDA requires that farm to kill every single one of the 3 million birds on the farm.
Oh, gosh.
So the problem is they migrate south for the winter, but then they migrate north for the summer. They come right back and hit a second time. Well, this time, this bird flu that we recently got hit with killed 150 million chickens in like 6 or 8 weeks time, which is the most chickens ever to die in U.S. history in that short a period of time.
Wow.
So it's created a massive egg shortage throughout the United States. I mean, you're seeing egg prices in California at $18 a dozen. The national, there's a very misleading thing, because on the news they'll say, like yesterday or day before yesterday, they said, oh, egg prices are lower than they've been in the last 2 months. Everybody thinks, oh, egg prices are coming down. It's so misleading. They're the lowest they've been in the last 2 months because they've been the highest in U.S. history.
Wow.
When you Google what's the average price of a dozen eggs in the United States right now, it's $6 a dozen. It's higher than they've been in 5 years. So to say it's lower in the last 2 months is the total biggest crock I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I used in 2012, I could buy a truckload of egg whites for $6,500.
Mm.
Today, I paid $37,000 for the same truck. I mean, I am at the all-time highest price I've ever had to sell my egg whites for, and I'm still averaging $3.64 a dozen. I'm cheaper
Jeez.
than everybody else in the country, even though, because I'm used to selling them so cheap to people because it's a great price. I mean, it's cheaper than buying a protein powder. It's
Yeah.
30 to 40% more absorbable than a protein powder. And whether my price is high or not, I'm still cheaper than everybody else on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, well, for the most part, probably not on the planet because they don't have the bird flu in Europe right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, wow, that's crazy. You know, it's interesting that you think they would have some kind of way with our technology that they could test these chickens without having to like mass murder. But I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like killing off their whole supply. You think they would have some kind of like testing method for that?
well, let me give you the bad news. They
Okay.
have a vaccine
Mm-hmm.
that will eliminate this bird flu forever. The problem is they sell so many chickens to Europe. It's a $60 billion a year business to Europe, and Europe won't buy any eggs that have antibiotics in them.
Mm-hmm.
So the U.S. chooses not to let us use a vaccine that we could be using because it would kill the $60 billion economy to Europe because they can't sell eggs to Europe. They won't buy them.
Wow.
So they won't let us use we have the vaccine. We've had it for years. And I never thought I always thought it was just a bird flu thing that the birds are dying, which they are, but I never thought it was a government conspiracy. And now I'm starting to believe that it very possibly has a lot to do with government making money or people making money on the egg market, whether it be a fryer or an egg layer. I mean, they can't choose, oh, we're going to vaccinate the egg laying chickens, but not vaccinate the chickens we sell as fryers. You either vaccinate them all or you don't vaccinate any of them.
Yeah.
And they won't let them they won't let the farms use the vaccine on their particular farm, even though they may never ship to Europe. We don't know what the deal is. They have the vaccine, they just won't let them use it.
So if they're organic, if they're certified organic, they can't use any vaccines, right?
They can't use any vaccines pretty much on anything right now because in California and most of the states, they've got this CA 144 rule that they're hormone-free, pesticide-free, antibiotic-free, and you can't use, in California, it has to be cage-free or free-range or organic. I can't even buy a regular egg in California. Now, the thing they hear a lot is in Europe, eggs have a longer shelf life outside the refrigerator because they don't clean the eggs. So when a chicken lays an egg, there's a membrane around the shell that protects the egg to let it set out longer just on regular temperature without being refrigerated.
Gotcha.
But that membrane is also the membrane that carries the salmonella.
Okay.
So the reason they clean the eggs in the United States is because the salmonella is not in the egg; it's on the outside of the egg. It's on the shell, or it's on the dead chicken or the raw chicken itself. It's not in the egg itself.
I didn't know that. So do they have higher salmonella issues in Europe then with that? If they're not,
I don't know.
Really...
I've never researched that because it's possible and it makes more sense, but that's where the salmonella is. It's on the outside of the egg, but they won't.
I didn't know that.
In the United States, unless you own your own chicken farm, they're not cleaning the chickens at your own. Like if you own your own chickens, you're not going to. Well, you might clean your own eggs. I guess it's a personal preference.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So that shelf life, I want to talk about that with your product real quick, and then we can start kind of wrapping it up. But the egg whites, when you sit them in the container, they last 6 months in the fridge, right? Am I right?
Yeah, unopened. They're good in the refrigerator for 6 months at 39 degrees or lower. Most refrigerators have a factory setting between 34 and 37 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
If you adjust your temperature in your refrigerator to 40 degrees, those eggs are going to spoil in a matter of 3 or 4 days.
Gotcha.
Now, once you open them, most of my clients do an 8-ounce drink in the morning, 8-ounce drink at night. A gallon makes 16 8-ounce drinks, which is 14 dozen eggs. And most of my clients go through 14 dozen eggs in 8 days. I mean, imagine that. You're not eating a single egg, but you're eating 14 dozen eggs a week.
Wow.
So most people, it's never an issue. Now, if you open it up and it spoils in 3 or 4 weeks or a month or two, it's because you've let something get in that container. Something has contaminated those egg whites. And what's funny about egg whites is they work like baking soda. They'll absorb other odors around them. So if you were to take a cup of egg whites and leave it in an open cup in your refrigerator next to an onion, in about a day or two, it's going to drink like drinking a liquid onion.
Okay. That's good
So
to
if they
know.
if
So
they go
keep it
bad
closed.
if they go bad once you open them, it's because of something that has contaminated them. But generally, I haven't had anybody literally ever have an egg white spoil while they're actually using it. It's only when they forget about it and then 2 or 3 months later go in their refrigerator and, oh, I still got a bottle of egg whites in here I haven't been using. But
Okay.
with the pump on the bottle, the pump is a universal measuring device. I highly recommend everybody get a pump. Each pump is 3¼ grams of protein, 1¼ egg whites, or 1 ounce. The pump sells for $12.95, but it has a lifetime guarantee, so you never ever buy another pump. If it ever breaks or fails, 99% of the time I can fix it over the phone. It's usually an air bubble, but it keeps the containers sealed, so you're not constantly opening and closing it. The thing about egg whites is liquid egg whites. If you were to spill egg whites on your linoleum floor and left it there, you could vacuum it up in a couple of days because it turns to dust. So the same thing holds true if you're pouring the egg whites out of the container, and these bottles weigh 8 pounds for the gallon and 4 pounds for the half gallon. They have a 4-inch wide mouth opening. So if you're pouring it into a 2-inch cup, number one, you're probably going to have a mess all over your kitchen counter, but you're going to have egg white residue on the outside of the rim. So when you screw the lid back on, in a day or two, that lid dries to a fine powder. You practically super glue the lid back on. And when you open it up, those fine powder particles go back into the egg whites, and that's how you contaminate the bottle.
Okay. I
So that's why-
realized that I just did all that with my jar.
Because you didn't get, well, in a half gallon, it's not necessary to have the pump because it's fairly easy to pour, but the gallon bottle, you definitely want the pump because you don't want to have to be picking that bottle up and pouring it into a glass. And it makes it really easy for the kids too, because the kids will reach in the refrigerator door and just start pumping it in their own chocolate milk on their own. It's funny how the kids just literally take over.
Yeah, my next order, I'm definitely going to get the pump. But okay, well, let's first. So we're going to put the promo code down on when this YouTube airs, and on the podcast channel, we're going to have a promo code in there so people can get a little discount if they want to order their egg whites from you. We're going to get that set up in the channel. Is there anything else you kind of want to tell people that we didn't kind of touch on or talk about about the product or the company?
Well, the promo code, which I think we set it up as Lion Life,
Yes.
we'll give them a 15% discount. If they want to call me or email me, my email is mac@eggwhitesint.com, or they can call 877-EGG-WHITES. I'm sure you have all that information already. I'll be happy to spend the time on the phone with them to educate them on how they should use it for their family or their personal use.
Yeah.
Give them obviously the discount and then throw in a free clothing item on top of that so they can get a cute clothing item with a funny saying on the clothing item as well.
Yeah, and he's got a couple funny ones. Monica was wearing that if you're watching this live, and then if you're listening, they've got some cute little shirts like what's the is it
Well, Monica has well, for the ladies, there's quite a few. There's Chicks Train Harder, Fit Chick, Badass Chick, All Natural Chick, Chicks Lift 2, Chicks Want to Run. The guys will have funny quotes like Chick Magnet or Chick Approved or No Yoke About It, the yoke's on you. So it's just a bunch of hilarious ones.
I love that. I definitely got to get some of those. I love the funny shirts. We always are making those up here too. So but yeah, this is a great product. It's something, if you're trying to increase that protein intake, this is a great way to do it. Clean source, full essential amino acids. So I strongly encourage it. And like I said, we'll put that promo link I'm gonna work on getting something on the website for Leo as well, so you guys can order that. And we'll put Mac's information there, so if you want to get in hold of him at the office, that you can do that too. And Mac, I really appreciate all of this, and again, like for coming on here and explaining this. I think it's a really great topic, especially like you said, bird flu craziness right now. And so I really appreciate your time.
Oh, very well. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it. And then when you get ready for your May 17th deal,
Yeah.
give me a heads up on that, and I'll be happy to send you a bottle of egg whites that you can use for your demo, so you can mix it with different flavors, iced coffee or chocolate milk, whatever, so that the people can actually pour it into a little Dixie cup or something like
Yeah.
a 1 or 2 ounce, and that way people can see that they can't taste it no matter what you mix it in. So we'll give them a better comfort level instead of mentally thinking they're drinking an egg white.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that. I want to have everybody that gets done with their workout, because we're gonna have 4 sessions, that they can try a little bit of that with like either a smoothie or like a coffee type of thing, and see what they think. And then we're gonna have a seminar that night, so we can have it there too. So
Very good. That would be
yeah.
excellent.
And we always end our podcast with a quote. So I'm going to do this basic one that I've always loved from Hippocrates: let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So again, Mac, thanks for being here. And I will definitely be in touch and ordering more. And I'm probably going to send my grandpa one, and then we'll get stuff set up for the May 17th. So again, thank you.
Very good. It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet you.
You too.
All right,
Bye.
thank you.